All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I've got, well, 1:59. I'll give people another like 30 seconds. Okay, I've got 2 o'clock. So feel free as we're doing this to, you know, if you want to unmute your mic and be able, I think you can, hopefully there, yeah, I think that should be good. Ask questions. You can ask questions in the chat box. Feel free either way. So today is our 3rd orientation session, and we are talking about, today I'm going to try to get through all 3 topics. I can't guarantee I'll get through all 3, but we'll try. We're going to talk about 4-H club chartering. I just want to go over what the process is for club chartering, and then also enrollment and reporting and managing risk. And so to start, we're going to just talk about the club chartering. So if you're not familiar with what club chartering is, it is a club charter that's our official recognition to a club and or an affiliate. Now, we are working through the process of how this is going to look based on IRS guidelines, new IRS guidelines, but all of our 4-H clubs do have to have an official charter. It also, this is what, and then some of our affiliates, like our leaders councils, our livestock committees, those types of things, we may not necessarily need a club charter for those. It may be something, you know, where they get a letter of authorization or something to that effect. But, you know, it is either a club charter and or a letter of authorization that tells them they have permission to use the 4-H name and emblem. So why do we charter our groups? Well, one, it's a federal mandate that we have to officially charter any of our entities. And it is also, that's what recognizes and identifies 4-H entities as being eligible to use the name and emblem. And so we, and being able to participate in those official activities. If we have a club that is not chartered, now I will tell you, you know, if you've sent in the charter application, then, you know, assume that they are chartered. You know, I know we've been backlogged on getting charters out. We're working on trying to get those, you know, to try to get those updated. But we are, you know, assume that they are chartered, but they do have to, you know, they have that being able to participate in our 4-H activities. So it's also the 4-H charters, and you can see this picture. This is what the charter looks like when you get it. It's on a piece of paper, but it is presented on behalf of USDA and University of Nevada, Reno Extension 4-H Youth Development. It will have the signature of the, it's actually not the secretary of USDA. It's actually the head of the 4-H and youth division of USDA, but essentially it is somebody at USDA. It will have Dr. Lyle's signature on it, or the director of extension, whoever that may be, the state 4-H director's signature, and then when you get it at the county level, the extension educator needs to sign that, and then you can give that to your clubs. So with that, there are certain documents that are required. So there are 5 documents that the counties need to turn in to that the clubs need to turn into the county office. 1 is a charter application. 2 is the official requirements. It's a checklist. 3 is a copy of Constitution and bylaws, and we do have all of these documents as well as examples of all of the documents on, well, they were on the state 4-H website. They are not right now because they're not accessible, and so and they needed to be updated anyway, so that's a project that I've put on the list to try to get updated. I'll probably give it to Tracy to update those and make them accessible, but I will, for now, I will put them in the Nevada box. I had to search for them, I will tell you. I was looking for them yesterday and I had to dig to find them, but I did find them. I will get them in the Nevada box so that everybody will have those. But they do need to do a constitution and bylaws. They are supposed to do an annual program plan. So there's a form for that, and then also a meeting outline. And the reason for that is so that they think about what they're going to do before they get started. And so the process for this, it's actually pretty simple. So the club leader submits the documents from the last slide to the county extension office. After you look at them, at the county office, you're going to send a copy of the application and the official requirements, so the requirements checklist, to the state 4-H office. That is all that I need. You're going to send those to me or to the state 4-H office, and we will then review them, make sure it's got everything, and we will then sign that, get the charter completed and get a copy of it sent to you. So and then you will keep in your office the five documents. You need to keep a copy of the application, a copy of the requirements checklist, and then the constitution and bylaws, the program plan, and the meetings. You'll keep those in your office. We keep the application and the official or the requirements checklist and a copy of the charter. We keep a file of those. Then you and your office need to keep a copy of the charter, but you give the original charter to the club. So the way we do it is we print the original charter on it's not on cardstock, but it's on a little bit nicer paper, and it is in color. We do make a copy. I do believe, or at least we were, and I'll make sure that we do this. When we send you the charter, we'll send 2 copies. We'll send the original plus then just a photocopy of it. So that way you've got that. And so it's one section. Oh, yes.
That used to be sent on a very nice, heavier, like a parchment kind of paper.
Yep. And I thought it was being sent that way, but it could, that could have changed. But I will make sure that it's sent on that nicer parchment paper. And then, like I said, the copy goes to you. What I would suggest, this is, just trying to stay organized, is if you have the ability to keep a file for each club, then you would put those documents in that file for that club, along with, as we move forward, a copy of their financials, their financial annual report every year. So that way, it's easy to find and you know where they are. And then you could, at the same time, behind that club, you could put leader files in there with any of the paperwork that you need to keep for the leaders. So as you look at this is a copy of the this is a picture of the application. So it's pretty simple. They do the charter application. What is their club name? What's their county? It actually folds in half, so it's almost like a half page, so it's like this, and then it folds like this. And then they do have to do an equal opportunity certification. They need to sign this. I do need to look at that. I need to run that by our civil rights and compliance to make sure that it still fits. I believe we probably will have some new wording that needs to go in there. You can see it hasn't been updated since 2013. But
yeah, that is not the correct statement. And when you were trying to fold paper, we're looking at your screen, so we.
Oh, sorry. I thought you guys could see my picture. So, and then this is the inside of this. This is where we also need to do a little bit of revision. One, for a new group, we need to have that equal opportunity statement. The program plan needs to be there. The constitution and bylaws need to be there, but they don't necessarily need to be sent to the state office. You guys can keep copies in your office. And it says that we're supposed to renew every 5 years, and I think Sarah and I have talked about it. We're still trying, I'm not really sure why that was set up that way, but technically a club is chartered until they're until they're no longer in existence, as long as they have completed some pieces.
Yeah, and I think that is, and you know, we'll be talking more about that. But yes, the club is always in effect. It doesn't have to renew this stuff.
No,
They may need to look at their bylaws periodically, but they do not need to.
Right. And we'll probably have to figure out a way to have them sign that equal opportunity state or some kind of civil rights statement. I've actually been collecting some examples from other places.
But when we renew, because that civil rights statement, if we're collecting new leader enrollment forms every year or updating leader forms, that civil rights statement is there.
Yep. So, and then they do have to turn in their financial statements. So essentially, but this does need to be turned in each year. Yeah, and Sarah, it's right now they're nowhere, but I dug and found them yesterday, and they will be put on in the box account. So it took me a long time to find them. They took them off the website.
Yeah, because that's what I was wondering about, if they were on the web or if they were still on your share drive. I mean, I have mine locally, but if we've changed these documents, I don't.
Right, and I'm going to get them updated so we can send them, or so we can put them back up on the web, because that's where they need to be. So, any questions about the chartering? We've had questions come up about whether clubs need EIN number or, an EIN. Right now, no. If they do want to set up a bank account, if we have a new club that wants to set up a bank account, contact either myself or contact your like Sarah or Nora, and we will help you with that. Until Dan and I have been working very diligently, even through this time, trying to get everything put back in place. But no, you don't have to have an EIN before you send in the chartering information. And we'll send out directions on all of that once we get all of that. But we do have ways that we can get EINs. So. But does anybody have questions on how to, yeah, if you feel like your club's chart, yes, Alex, you can either talk to Sarah or myself. And
just reach out to me and I can talk you through that. I mean, because we haven't touched this for a while, and like you say, it could very well be a hot mess, and need to connect with them again.
Yep, and I kind of have a list of clubs by county that we have charters for, but again, somebody did it that it was really good. I don't know if Danae is on. I don't see that Danae is on right now, but Danae did it when she was a work study for us and did a fantastic job. And then I had some others after Danae do that, and it didn't work as well. So so I have all of the binders. I brought all the binders home with me during this time, and I kept thinking, oh, I'll be able to get to that, and I'm hoping that I can get to that. But I'm working really hard to try to get everything mashed and make sure that we have everything. So, all right. So enrollment and reporting. So the reporting system, we have an enrollment management system, which most of you are familiar with 4-H Online. So this is where we collect our enrollment numbers for youth and adults that are in both clubs and groups. There are project enrollment numbers. It can collect achievement and event participation. There's ways to collect that data. You can keep track of trainings. It's a little, it can be done. And then also and that's how we generate our ES237, which is our federal youth report. So who should report youth participation? It says 4-H Online, and it helps us keep track of our 4-H members, but really what the system is designed for is to keep track of all extension youth participants. So in your county, if you have other extension professionals who are doing youth programs for youth that are 5 to 19. So if they're doing younger than 5 or older, you know, or even a little bit older than 19, then you don't need to worry about those. But, you know, anybody, any extension professional who's doing youth programs, they need to be reporting those numbers. This was talked about at our last, at the last faculty meeting, all faculty meeting. And Shannon Harillo, the new, or our associate director, Paul Lessick, and myself have been working on combining a group enrollment form for SNAP-Ed and 4-H. So there will be a new group enrollment form coming out, very similar to what some of the other what the counties have been using. Probably just a few little minor tweaks, but we do need to make sure that we get those numbers. And then also, if you have given any 4-H curriculum to programs, so sometimes we may not be able to go into a school and teach a curriculum, but we have a teacher who loves 4-H and knows that 4-H is going to be a huge, you know, that our curriculum is good and they want to use it in their classrooms, then you give them the curriculum. Well, you need to be getting those numbers from them. If we have any Grange members that are using 4-H curriculum, they need to be reporting numbers to us. FFA, you know, sometimes they use curriculum as well. So it is, but we do need to be collecting those. We can collect them via group enrollments. So what you could do is when you give them curriculum, you give them the group enrollment form along with that.
Carrie?
Yep.
If I may interject, and I know that Sam is on here too somewhere, I think. I know that we want to have a group report that one size kind of fits all, but if we could defer to 4-H, and if you would be willing to work with Sam, because what the people that are inputting into 4-H online, he has created a flow that it makes it so much easier to input into our database management system. So because he has expressed some frustration about, I'm not trying to pin him down, but there has been some frustration of other forms that have been designed that didn't follow the flow. Like the enrollment form, for example, doesn't follow the flow of how we put it in our database. So if you wouldn't mind working with some of those people who are those frontline people.
And my plan is I've got to have a meeting with some of the SNAP-Ed people to just make sure we're capturing everything we need to capture, and then kind of create that and then work with a couple people to make sure it fits correctly. So for sure.
And Sam said he would be willing to help with that. Awesome.
And Jamie, like I said, we've got the clubs. I've got an Excel spreadsheet of clubs in the counties that we do have chartered. I think they're correct. They were correct as of like 3 years ago, but I'm not super confident that they were done correctly. So I wanted to double check them, but I can get that to you guys. The other piece, yep, not a problem. What I really want to do is go because I can pull the list of clubs by county and compare the two lists. I can pull them out of 4-H online and compare the two lists. I just, it's one of those, I keep thinking, oh, someday I'll have time to do that. And I don't. So, but I probably will have Tracy do that soon. So. All right, so how do you report? So there's 2 ways that we report numbers into 4-H online. One is through individual enrollment. So this is where we collect individual data, demographics. So we might include name, address, email address. We do require this for all of our 4-H members in clubs and 4-H direct volunteers. Now we do have some workarounds with that, but we do like to collect as many individual enrollments as possible. This is where we ask them, gender, race, ethnicity, where they live, what grade they're in, all of those pieces. We also have group enrollment. So this might be where we have a group enrollment form and you're gathering, so you're going to put in a whole program, so maybe you went into the school and taught STEM for 6 weeks. And so this would be where you would put this group enrollment. You knew, you know that there were this many kids, etc. So just to kind of, when you look at individual versus group enrollments, so our individual enrollments are 4-H club members. We do have individual members that are maybe not part of a 4-H club, but they are taking 4-H projects. We do have group enrollments. You can do 4-H club members if you cannot collect individual demographics. So sometimes, especially when we're working with some of our underrepresented audiences, we can't collect individual enrollment forms. It's just tough to do. Either parents won't fill it out, or there's just a whole variety of reasons. We can put in group enrollments. Now, we should not be individually enrolling them and also putting them in as a group enrollment. It's one or the other. Now, if you have a club that maybe you collected some of the individual enrollments and some of the groups, that's different. It's just you don't put this, the same kids in both. You also do group enrollments typically for special interest or short-term programs, and I'm gonna go over what these all mean for those of you that may not be familiar with these delivery modes. But we also collect group enrollments for our school-based programs, our after-school programs, and then also our camping programs. So 4-H Online currently is our 4-H data management or our enrollment management system. If you are, I think everybody on here should be at least know what 4-H Online or has heard the term. There are, and I don't want to do this, but there are webinars on the YouTube channel that Sam has done for us with on how some basics of 4-H Online. But if you do have issues with the system, I'm not going to go into details of how to use it. I just want to talk a little bit about what it could do for us or do for you. But we'll get you help if you need help. So what is 4-H Online? It is our software database program. It's owned by a private company in Texas, but it is used across the country. What happens is our state 4-H program, we pay a fee to use the program, and then you get, and then each county has access to it. There are, if you're familiar with it, it's a tiered online access. Families do have access to this. So do our volunteers, and then you do at the county, and then I have access to them at the state level. So, families can't see the same thing that I see at the state level. There are things that I see at the state level that you can't see at the county level. So it is that tiered system. So when people ask, like, what can the families see? It is very different. And then it allows for our data management and report generation, and you can also facilitate communications. It is, most of the emails that I send out is through 4-H Online, through the broadcast system. What's really nice about it too is you can send out a document. You can send out a letter, you can send out a newsletter. I know that's how Sam sends out the communications through Washoe County, or like Clover Clips goes. He puts it as a newsletter in 4-H Online, and then can send out the link to it, and then you don't have to worry about putting it on a website. You don't, it's there. So that is a huge benefit. Why do we use 4-H Online? I've been around long enough. Sarah's been around long enough that we remember the days of just collecting a card from everybody and getting a card that you took, and that was your enrollment. And so has 4-H Online been used for the live individuals? Families can go in and enroll themselves in 4-H Online as a county, you need to decide whether you're going to give the families that access. My suggestion is yes, every family should be doing their own enrollment. And then you know, on those odd occasions where you have a family that doesn't have internet access, or you don't have, you know, there's some reason they can't do it, then you give them the paper packet, but they should be going in and doing their own enrollment. That's really what it's there for. So it's real-time data entry and access. What I like is we give consistency across the state. And, you know, this isn't as big of a deal anymore as it used to be, but easy ES237 report generation. It used to be back, it hasn't even been that many years ago, that we could only generate a ES2, you know, like we could only generate that report on our enrollments at the end of the year. And what would happen is each county would have to generate that report, and then they'd have to send it into the state 4-H office, and we would have to manually put that report together. And what I love about this now is, you know, I get phone calls all the time about, you know, can you tell me how many kids are enrolled in the sewing, the Ready Set Sew, or I don't, you know, whatever the project name is, or how many kids are in archery. I can go into 4-H online at any given time and look, oh, we have, you know, 3,000 kids enrolled in archery right now. And so that's, I mean, someone that has been around so, you know, long enough, that is huge, huge benefit, or huge plus for this system. And so, you know, and it is nice because, again, you know, you guys can go in and look at any time what your, you know, what your enrollments are. So what can it do for you at the county level? It does keep track of our club membership and volunteer enrollment. It does support, there's support for club management. You can do the group enrollments. There is a capability of doing event registration and approval. And I think at one point, I think Elko was, I don't know if you guys are still using it for evaluate or for group or event registration, but it does have that option. And it seems like there's a way that you can do it even for those that aren't registered, like aren't enrolled members. I don't know exactly how that's done, but that's something we can learn how to do. Oh, okay, not anymore. It is, it's a little bit cumbersome, but it is, you know, that is an option that you can do system reports and then also that communications. Yeah, sometimes it can, we tried event registration. Once you, and Candy, you had a nightmare letting families do their own enrollments. The problem is once you start having families, if they haven't started doing it, then they go in and try to create a new profile, and that makes it a mess. And so, but that's really what it's designed for, is for that reason, is, you know, so we don't have to spend the time filling out, you know, retyping all the paperwork. So as you look at this, so this is kind of how it's set up. So club members, so the parents go in, enter the enrollment into, and they electronically sign forms. This is the other issue. If, and I'm finding this with a couple of our, you know, I've gone in to look at a couple of things in 4-H online, and I have parents or, you know, parents or members or volunteers who have not electronically signed the code of conduct or the waiver or some of those things in 4-H online, whether whether they're not being marked at the county level, but I need to be able to see that they did that. I need to know that they have a signed code of conduct every year. And so that's where, that is where we really, you know, that's what's important. If a child gets hurt and we don't have a waiver, you know, and I get involved in it and we don't have a waiver, in 4-H online, I don't have it. So yeah, so Sarah says brand new members submit the paper form, and then after that they do their own re-enrollment through 4-H online. And you can, and there's
and Carrie, the reason we do that is to avoid that hot mess.
Yeah.
Because then it gets in there correctly, and then they can manage it the rest of their 4-H career. And because invariably they, forget their password, and we have to resend that and all that.
Exactly. I forget my password all the time for 4-H online. But the one nice thing is they cannot be they can't be put into the system until you at the county level approve them. So that is, so you're not going to have people just randomly, there's always the question of, well, what if somebody goes in and enrolls, but they don't have a club? Well, you're going to know that because you're going to see that, somebody's in there and they don't have a club. So you do approve all of them. And then volunteers, they enter their enrollment information and electronically sign the forms. And then again, you confirm that volunteer is okay, and that and then activate that volunteer when they have all their requirements. So they could go in and put their information into 4-H online, but you don't activate them until you get their fingerprint results back. So that's how that can work. So it's not, it does lend for that. Some states, when they have enrollment fees, they do not approve, members or volunteers until they receive that enrollment fee. So for the club management, so volunteers can also have access to information within 4-H online. You can give access to volunteers. And I know that some counties have done this, and it is really nice. Now we are trying to work out there is a problem when youth are in 2 different clubs, having them show up in both clubs, but we're still trying to work that issue out. It's not 100%, but volunteers can go in and they can get access to that family and the contact information, what projects youth are enrolled in. You can set it up so they have to confirm members in their club before it goes to the county level. And then they can also generate reports. The club my son is in, he uses it all the time to figure out who's in his club, what projects they're supposed to be in. If we didn't have the issue of not showing up in both clubs, it would be a lot better. He happens to run 2 clubs, and most of the kids are in both clubs, and so that makes it a little bit difficult. But but this is really nice for the volunteers. Then they can run their own reports. They don't have to be calling you all the time. Who's in my club now? Can you give me that information? Okay, for group enrollments. So this is, again, you can see day camps, after school programs. We do collect demographics on the youth. We collect contact time. We collect the program delivery method. So was it, how was it delivered? And then also what was the subject matter that was taught. So it is done. Now the group enrollments are done by the extension office. And they are typically you gather it as you do the programs. And then depending on how your office is set up, there may be 1 or 2 people that are designated to enter that data. Speaking from experience, it is so much easier if you can put your group enrollments in as you do those programs, or at least quarterly. This is speaking from a person who used to wait until September. Let's say they were due by September 30th. I would wait until September 28th to get them done, and that's not good. It's not good because you don't always remember what all you did. So it is better to do them as you go. And it just depends on your office on how it is set up. Some of the offices have 1 or 2 people designated, and that's all that can get into 4-H online. Some people allow everybody to enter the data. So And then, you know, I talked just briefly event registration and approval. We have not really used this much, but just know that it is a feature. If we do event registration, I had really wanted to try to do 4-H Expo through this registration process, but couldn't get it figured out in time for last year. I don't know if it'll happen again this year, but it even if they are registered for an event, you know, if they registered like for Expo at the county level, you have to approve them before they go on to the state level. So we, you know, so before we even see them at the state level, then you have to approve them at the county level. So it really doesn't, you know, somebody can't register without you knowing it. And then the system reports, there are standard reports that automatically, you know, you don't have to set up any parameters on. It just spits out the reports. You can get a club directory, you can get a leader directory. So it will print out the, you know, all of your clubs. It'll print out all your leaders. The ES237, which is your enrollment report, that gives you all your demographics. It gives you the number of projects, all of that. You have that member enrollment, the project enrollment. So if you want to know, I believe, oh no, that's a custom report, I believe. I can't remember exactly, but it also, what I find interesting, if any of you have ever played with this, maybe some of you have, but it will give you what your retention rate is. So it'll look at like first year members and how many youth stayed over to second year members. And kind of a variety of some of those types of statistics. It's kind of a cool way to do it. Yeah, Sam said they collect theirs monthly, and it's fresh in your mind, and it's not overwhelming to put them in. Believe me, my administrative assistant used to just cringe when I'd hand her this huge stack of group enrollments. You can also do custom reports. This is where you set the parameters for what you want. So members enrolled in a specific project, if you want a list of members in a specific area, a list of inactive volunteers, if you want a list of members and volunteers who live in a specific town. It won't go by zip code, but it will go by town based on their enrollment data. I have put in, well, when we send out information about like 4-H Day at the legislature, I've gone in and done a custom report that only sends it to that age group. When we sent out the information for the statewide assessment, I did one letter to 4th through 7th graders and another one for 8th through 12th graders. So I was able to set those parameters up to do that. And I do, you know, I used to be horrible at custom reports. I'm still not great at them, but I have learned a little bit about how to set them up. Couple times I've had to call and ask for help. It's like it's not giving me the numbers. I think it was, we were trying to find how many youth, I don't remember what it was. It was a weird, like it was a weird thing that we were looking for. It was something around evaluation when we were looking at evaluations, and we couldn't quite get exactly what we needed. And so it took a couple people helping to figure out what that was, or to how to set that custom report up. And then again, your ES237, that's your annual federal report. I do have to submit that report to USDA every year. We do, you know, there is funding involved in that. So we have to, your information at the county level, you have to have all of your data entered into 4-H Online by mid to late September. The system automatically rolls over at midnight on October 1st, September 30th, October 1st, automatically rolls over and makes everything inactive. And so that's why people have to re-enroll. And so all of your group enrollments, all of that needs to be entered. I would, you know, I like to say that they really need to be entered by about the 15th of September, but I know that that doesn't always happen, but the earlier the better. And then again, I just pull that data and make, you know, and put that ES237 together. So, and then I will tell you also with this ES237 report, those, it's not only do I have to turn it into the federal to USDA, but Dr. Lyles looks at it very frequently. We have to put it into our federal. I have to turn it in as a separate report, but it also goes into our federal report that does tie in all of our money from USDA. So, and then we give those numbers to stakeholders all the time. We give them, it's good, if you at the county level want to use those numbers to give to county commissioners, you can show growth, you can show a lot of things through those numbers. We are working on, I'm hoping that all of your extension educators are asking for those numbers as well to look at that. We are working on trying to get some infographics put together so that your county could have an infographics page, as well as the state, kind of just highlighting some of those pieces. And then communications, again, this is something else that it does. If you haven't used that feature, that is a great feature. Families can indicate whether they want stuff mailed to them or emailed to them. You can post messages or documents on the opening page for families. So when a family logs in, there's information on that front page. It can send group emails. Those are called broadcast emails. You can generate mailing labels from 4-H Online, and then you can also generate a list of contact information. So really the communications piece is huge as well. And then just so you know, for resources, and the other day I learned that it's not an easy thing to find. We do have a website we do have a site on our website for 4-H Online Help. It's now titled, well, here's the URL. It's under Employee Resources, and it's titled Extension Youth Participation for the ES237 Report. Don't ask me why. I don't know. I don't know why it's titled that, and I don't know why it has Shannon Harillo as the author. So, sometimes when I'm trying to find something on the website, I look for it, like maybe one of us is the author, and something happened when it got transferred over, but it is there. And then I had somebody the other day ask me about an instruction manual for county extension staff. This is, things for you, hints for you. I have not created one myself because there's about 3 or 4, a lot of states have them and there's no reason to really create anything. There is the one that, the University of Idaho one is there. There's a link on the help page for 4-H Online to Idaho, and it takes you right to their help page. There's also, I believe, North Dakota and Texas, I think, are 2 others that are linked in our on our page, and any of those have these documents. This is one, and it hasn't changed since 2012. Now I will tell you, moving forward, 4-H Online is coming out with a new version, 2.0. Supposedly it's going to be done by October. We'll see. And then I have formed a committee because there is another company now that is doing an enrollment management for 4-H. And I have formed a committee to look at the 2 systems and see which one is a better fit for Nevada, which one is going to give us more resources and more capabilities. So hopefully they are meeting tomorrow for the first time, and then they're going to meet with the 2 companies and look at all those options. So, but for now, this is what we use for this year. There will be training, because 4-H Online is coming out with a new system, we will be looking at doing training July, August, September. So any questions just quickly about 4-H Online or just enrollment, this part of enrollment management? Okay, so I'm going to talk now about the delivery modes. I'm looking at time. Okay. So as you know, we have a variety of delivery modes because, the club program is great. It is the heart and soul of our program, but we can't reach all of our youth by this. I looked it up. And we are actually only 6% of our 4-H enrollment in Nevada is reached through the club program. Everything else is reached through these other delivery modes. So 94% of our enrollment. So these definitions were defined by National 4-H headquarters to be used for year-end reports. So what you're going to do is in the group enrollment, you're going to report to the best of your ability what those are. So to begin with, what is an organized 4-H community club? So it's an organized group of youth who have a youth-led leadership structure, and they're supported by trained supervised volunteers, and they meet regularly and conduct a series of educational experiences. So there are a variety of types of clubs. There might be a community club, there's an in-school club, there's after-school clubs, and then there's military clubs. I'm going to talk about each of those. But the community club, we call them a community club. Also, a project club is considered part of this community club. So community club is what is typically based around a community. So it might be it might be in Wadsworth, they have one club and they have multiple projects in that club. It could also be, just a variety of things, but there's a club and they have multiple projects. A project club is one specific project. So it might be the shooting sports club or the rabbit club. And we have both systems in Nevada. So, but they are all, either one of those are reported under this organized 4-H community club. So, but then there are, I just wanted people to be aware, there are two categories. They're both reported here, but we have a regular 4-H club where our clubs have 5 members from no fewer than 3 different families. They must be organized with a youth-led leadership structure. So typically we know that as officers, club officers. They must meet 6 or more times per year. That's not 6 or more hours, that's 6 or more times. They must be supervised by 1 or more certified 4-H volunteers, and they need to be using approved research or evidence-based 4-H curriculum. And then we do have family clubs or independent members. And so this is when you have groups that have fewer than 5 members enrolled or fewer than 3 families. So there might be 10 kids in the club, but there's only 2 families. That's still considered a family club. They, same principles apply. Now, some of our independent members, they can be supervised, either their parents are a certified 4-H volunteer, or sometimes they can be, they can work with their county extension personnel to get that supervision. So, but that is an option. When we talk about finances in a month or so, this is where it comes into play. Right now, they are, and if, a lot of times if you have a club that has, they've had these, 5 members from 3 families in, for 20 years, and then for some reason they fall below, and, I usually give them a year to make that up. But, if they can't get 5 members from 3 families, then they need to bump down to the family or independent, probably give them 1 year to see. Just could be, something happened in the community. And so the community clubs, we do have the other types. We have in-school 4-H clubs, after-school 4-H clubs, and military 4-H clubs. So an in-school club would be they meet during school hours. They do still have the youth-led leadership. They have planned activities, and they're chartered. So this is typically a Southern delivery method, but we do have, we have been using this one. We actually have some clubs in Clark County, I know for sure, and I think some of the other programs do have this. After school clubs, they meet during an after school program. Again, they have the youth-led leadership, planned activities, and they're chartered. And I know we do have some of these. I know Washoe has some of these, and it seems like there's a couple other counties that have these as well. And then we have our military 4-H clubs. Those are primarily for military dependents. They're often on our military installations, and they can be chartered. So we do have a few of these military clubs in Nevada at Nellis, and I think Nellis might be our only place right now, but we used to have them in many other places. Maybe Fallon, I can't remember, but you know, that is an option. The next one is our short-term or special interest. So this is a groups of when they're meeting for special learning experiences. Might be that you're teaching directly as extension staff, or trained volunteers are teaching. It's not part of a school curriculum. It's not restricted to 4-H club members. That must have an educational component. It cannot be a marketing event, and it can include a multi-days. So an example of this would be if you go into the library and you're doing like sequential learning lessons, you know, maybe you're offering them once a week for 8 weeks. So that would be included in the special interest or short term. The teen leadership retreat, you know, if you do a teen leadership retreat in your county where they're maybe spending the night for a couple of nights, that would, or 1 or 2 nights, that would be included in here. Capital days, those types of things. I know Northeast Clark or Logandale office, they hosted the livestock overnight camp. That would be included in this area. So really, it's, you know, it's when there's an educational event. Now we have had, and there's questions about whether, you know, if it needs to be 6 hours of instruction or not 6 hours of instruction. I always say if there is an educational, a real educational experience, if they're doing a science experiment, you know, something that takes more than 5 minutes, if you have time with them, you know, that's a potential. But things like if you set up a booth at the Home and Garden Show, or if you're setting up a booth at your fair to promote 4-H, those do not count. That is a marketing event, and there is no, you know, there's no education. Those are, you know, purely marketing. Those could be potentially reported in another location, but for this is our educational programming. So yeah, and then we have school enrichment. So this is a group, you know, this is where we go into a school and we're giving a series of lessons, experiential learning, you know, learning experiences. We're supporting school curriculum. It takes place during the day. It could be you teaching as an extension staff or a volunteer, or it could be a teacher that, again, that's taken our curriculum and is using it. You know, an example, this was a really long time ago, but when I was in 5th grade, I still remember this. My teacher used the 4-H health curriculum, and that was our health lesson. And we actually completed a 4-H project within our, you know, within our classroom, and we got a ribbon for it. You know, we didn't do the officers and, you know, that, but we completed the project as a school enrichment program. But the extension office counted those numbers, even though they weren't the ones teaching, but she was using the curriculum. So it could be, you know, that you are, you know, you have those learning experiences. This can be, and this is where it's really funny because I've seen it where it can only be the public school, or it can be public school, private school, or homeschool. If you have homeschool families using our curriculum to supplement their education, you know, their educational curriculum, then absolutely count them in the school enrichment. This is typically where, if you have FNEP or SNAP-Ed program in your county, this is typically where we report those numbers, especially if they're going into the schools and teaching during the school day. And then camping programs. So this is when youth are taking part in an extension planned educational experience of group living in the out of doors. So they're getting an outdoor experience. So overnight camping is when they're being, you know, where they're away from home for at least one night. It's not restricted to members of, you know, of our 4-H clubs. It's open to anybody. Our day camping may be a 1-day or it may be a multi-day program where youth come and they learn and then they return home every night. So spring break, a lot of times we do spring break day camps at, it could be at your office, it could be at, another facility, but that's where you would count those. Those are typically theme-based, but it just, it's all up to how you want to look at that. And then again, we have our individual studying, mentoring. They're doing planned learning. Instead of being in a formal group setting, they're doing it individually or maybe in a family learning. It might be self-directed with limited adult involvement. We have some teens that maybe want to do that. Again, it could be they're working one-on-one. It could also be a group mentoring program. I know like Heart and Shield program in Elko, this is where those numbers are reported. So if you're doing a group mentoring or, youth involved in some kind of family-based programming, if they're 5 to 19, this could potentially be where they are housed or where they're reported. And then our after-school programming, this is our, educational programs are offered outside of the school hours. It's usually in a school or community center. It just all depends that you're utilizing 4-H curriculum. It could, purpose is to provide care for youth while parents are unavailable. It can be extension run, or it could be in partnership with a community organization. We have examples of where extension runs the after school program at a housing authority facility or at a Boys and Girls Club. It could also be that you're going in and doing lessons at the Boys and Girls Club. That would be partnering. We also have a county that goes into their 21st century. The school district has a 21st century learning. They go in and teach in those sessions. They go in and teach most of the a lot during those sessions during that time. They're not running the program, but they are a major partner in that program. So, and then the last one, and this is the one that we typically have not had anybody participate in, but seeing what we're doing now, where we're offering learning experiences through broadcast or closed circuit TV. This is where I can see this next year reporting, like when we're doing Facebook Live sessions, or we're doing some of these online learning opportunities. This is where I see them being reported, and I've been thinking about how to do that. And you could do group enrollments through Facebook. You can pull some of that demographic. You may not know all of it, but you're going to know, some of it in there to be able to report those in that for that. And this, like I said, this is the place to do that. All right, so let's practice just a little bit. So you have parents of a local National Guard unit decide 4-H is a good program for their children. They organize a club with the county extension office support. Volunteers are certified and the club is chartered. They hold meetings, elect officers, do activities, events at a community center. Where would you report that? Okay, I got one military club. Anybody else? Military, yep, military club. Okay, so the YMCA has a program for youth to meet at their center after school. They hold the program 5 days a week, and youth do not need to attend every day, although they do sign in when they get there. They've invited 4-H to provide educational programming once a week for 6 weeks in the fall and again in the spring. Where would you report that? After school, yep. Yep, good. County 4-H Professional has decided to hold an overnight program for youth focusing on horse project activities and requires a registration for the event. 4-H club membership is not required. Where would you report that one? Okay, we have camping program. Any other guesses? Short term, special short term. That one, yeah, and for me, that one's kind of a, you know, I personally would probably put it in special and short term just because it's not that outdoor for the overnight portion, but I would accept that in either one of those two areas. So we have a community partner of Extension is holding a field day and have invited schools to bring youth on a field trip to participate in a variety of activities. 4-H is invited to host a station and provides an educational activity. The youth rotate through a series of stations over a course of 4 hours. First of all, do you think you should report that? And where would you report it? Okay, it has an educational component, yeah. So I would report that one as long as the educational component was, something, they weren't just coloring or they weren't, I mean, it needs to be a true educational component. So yeah, it would be that one actually, I would say I would almost put that one in special interest. It could potentially be in schools, but because it's really in the community, they're just inviting the schools to participate, then it would be, yeah. But you're getting it, Jamie. So a certified volunteer would like to teach youth about electricity. He volunteered to meet with youth once a week for 6 weeks. Where do you think you should report that? And there was one thing that I didn't talk about. I just want to see if anybody can think about where to report that. That one actually would be what I would consider a short or a special interest club, a spin club, where they're just coming in for 6 weeks, learning about a specific topic, and then they're done. So I would say you could report that. If you collect individual data on with those young people, then I would put that in your club enrollments, because it is it could go there or your special interest. But I would say either or of those. And then you have a school that's invited in FCS. If you don't know what FCS, Family Consumer Science, we don't really call them FCS here, but extension professionals. So maybe, one of the SNAP-Ed individuals has been invited to come to a school and lead a full school assembly teaching hand washing. Do you think that one should be reported? Technically it's education, but it's pretty short. Yeah, I would say no on that one. I wouldn't report that one just because, I mean, that's big numbers. It'd be great to have those big numbers, but because it's probably only 5-10 minutes, maybe a half an hour, I probably would not do that one. Okay. And then there's some more in here that you can, these are looking at where you think that they should fit. I'm not going to go through those because I want to try to get through as much of the risk management as I can. But are there any questions on enrollment and reporting? As you guys are doing enrollment, as you're putting stuff into 4-H Online, if you have any questions, reach out. I'm willing to help answer your questions. I know Sam is really good at it. We've got, and Sarah, Nora, we've got people that can help you try to figure out where to report something or if you should report it. So, okay. Any other questions? All right, managing risk, my favorite topic. Most people will say, Carrie, all you think about is risk. And I'm like, yes, I do. Yeah, thank you, Sam. Sam said he's always glad to help answer questions. So, and I appreciate that. So what is risk? So risk is the chance of loss. So you can see, you know, I always like that picture of that kitty. So what kind of risks do we take? We take a risk by getting out of bed in the morning. We take a risk drinking a cup of coffee. We take a risk driving to and from work. And we do take a risk by running a program involving youngsters who are in need of adequate and basic safety and handling this is for shooting sports, but essentially, by running our 4-H programs, we are taking a risk. And so the way to do that is to understand what risk is and ways that we can help alleviate some of those risk factors. So essentially, risk management is the process to use to protect assets by minimizing the potential for negative outcomes. So when you think about that in the realm of 4-H, it is, our 4-H club, our group, or planning committee, we need to anticipate potential risks as the activity is planned, and we need to decide how to manage those risks. So that's why a lot of times I will ask, if somebody comes to me about different events, or if I happen to see, if you post something on Facebook or, I see an email, please do not be offended if I start asking you some of these questions. You may have thought about them, but it's just things that, I think about or I've had experience and I know could potentially be a risk. I'm not trying to undermine anything. I'm just trying to make sure that we are protected the best that we can be. So risk, risk is the uncertainty about a future event that threatens the organization's ability to accomplish its mission. So, things happen. We know that unexpected things happens all the time, and that kind of stuff we can't predict, but we really want to try to predict as much as possible. So it's important for the safety of our youth and our adult program participants. It also helps us to evaluate the allocation of our resources. As we're looking at programs, if we know we have a high risk program or a program that has caused a lot of issues, is it worth our money or worth our time to actually conduct that activity? I'm trying to think of, right now, my brain's kind of like, but like, I can't think of, I know examples. One of the things that I have stopped a program from doing is when I was in North Dakota during our youth conference, every year the kids would want to play dodgeball. Like that was one of the activities that they would do. Well, you know what? It seemed like, every single year I took at least 1 or 2 youth to the hospital because of dodgeball. So after about 2 years of that, I'm like, let's think about this. Our allocation of resources, can we, is it worth it for me to be taking kids to the hospital? Number one, we're having to pay for that, for insurance and all, we pay for insurance anyway, but insurance is having to pay for that. And is it really that critical to the program that we have to do that? And so I got the youth to finally agree to stop playing dodgeball. I was gonna just come down and, I don't like to do that, but no more dodgeball. Because again, it was that allocation of resources. It took me away from the conference as the adult advisor to that group, for a couple hours because I had to, I had to take that child to the hospital. So it also becomes an important educational component, when you think about safety and prevention. And practicing good risk management allows us to focus on achieving our mission and not worrying about what's going to happen. So what are the types of risk? There's physical risk. So this could be a risk, risk of bodily harm to participants. There's reputation risk of others losing confidence or trust in our organization. Emotional risk, where our participants feel upset, uncomfortable, embarrassed. And then financial. So anything with money. And I feel like in the last couple of weeks, it feels like I've hit every single, thinking about all of these within our program and how this is all affecting us. But so some important risk management terms. So there's liability. So this is a legally bound or responsible. It's something in which a person is liable as an obligation or responsibility or a debt. So the forms of liability. So negligence. So this is failure to use the degree of care. This is the legal definition. The failure to use the degree of care which an ordinary person of reasonable prudence would use under the given or similar circumstances. So we have to think about that. Typically this is the one that we probably have the most often is negligence. There's assault and battery, false arrest and imprisonment, invasion of privacy, defamation and which is libel and slander, and violation of constitutional rights. Within our program, typically, if we're going to face any kind of form of liability, it's going to be a negligence. So how do we deal with strategies for risk management? So one thing we can do is we can reduce the risk. So that means that we are going to remove the risk or remove the hazards. So an example of that would be you're modifying a program or facility, such as adding a fence to separate the public from the animals in the show ring. This example is actually the Grizzly Bear Research Center at Washington State University. And what they've done is, one, it's a double fence. So the grizzly bears, are behind two fences, and they also have the sign up that, danger wild animals do not approach, etc. So they have reduced their liability by by showing that they've done this. We can transfer the liability. So shifting all or part of the risk to another party. Insurance is the big reason that, is by transferring that risk to the insurance company. That does it. Another example would be chartering a bus. If you're going to be taking young people to on a field trip or whatever, chartering a bus or renting vans or that type of thing. Chartering a bus, what that does is then the bus company assumes that liability. Instead of taking personal vehicles. And then also holding a meeting in a public place rather than in a private home is another way to do that. See, avoiding risk management. So you're taking steps, you're going to remove it completely. Maybe you're going to engage in an alternative activity. One, you can replace a night hike with a daytime hike. One thing I was talking, this is before I moved here, but we had a county that used to do flashlight tag every year at camp. Great fun activity. It's probably been a tradition for years and years and years. But again, every single year they did it, they had children get hurt because, and sometimes broken bones, sometimes because they trip and fall over what's in the forest when you're at camp. There's logs and stuff. And so with flashlight tag, it's kind of hard to see the ground. So, my comment to them was, maybe it's time to eliminate flashlight tag, if you have that many. And then you're discontinuing a high risk event. So don't want to swim with sharks, not being in a cage. Hopefully none of you are doing that, but and then the other one is you can assume risk. So this is, you've decided, the risks involved and you are accepting those risks. So this could be that you have, this is where our waivers come in sometimes, those types of events. So you've taken all the precautions. This picture is a group of our 4-H ambassadors when I was in North Dakota that we did a high ropes course as an activity. And you can see everybody had all their safety gear on. We had all the proper waivers. We knew it was a high risk activity. And we assumed that risk. We just made sure that they had every precaution. So, so that's some strategies for risk. I do want to talk a little bit about volunteer liability protection. So only our authorized volunteers are entitled to our liability insurance, or workman's comp is, if they get hurt. But we also have our liability, if we have somebody that is sued by like a 4-H member that maybe is hurt in an event and they sue everybody under the sun, including the 4-H volunteer, then the university is going to help they are going to, as long as the volunteer was working within their job description, which is why it's incredibly important to have job descriptions for our volunteers. As long as they're working within the scope of their volunteer, of their duties, then they are going to help represent them, and help with that. Authorized volunteers are people who have been asked to perform a specific function. It might be, sometimes you just need somebody to help you carry a panel. And so as a 4-H professional, you grab the first parent that you see, hey, can you help me carry this panel, from here to there? In that case, while they're not a formal volunteer, you have asked them to do a job. And so at that moment, for that specific task, they are considered, a volunteer. And then, it says here, all 4-H volunteers must complete the volunteer selection. Very rarely do we have those incidents, those issues of, somebody getting hurt whenever, and when we've asked them to do something specific. If you can always get a volunteer, an official volunteer, that's better. Any questions on that? Anybody have anything that they want to add to that? Okay. So there are some special areas for consideration. If you have like at 4-H camp, when kids are out in the canoes, when they're out in the kayaks, they need to be wearing life jackets. Shooting sports, we have very specific guidelines that they have to follow in order to do shooting sports. And you can see here, they've got their hearing protection on, they've got their eye protection on, they have they set up the range. Everything is, nobody is in front of the guns. You need to make sure that that is the case. In our horse project, we require all of our young people to be wearing helmets. That's, again, one of our other considerations. So those are areas that we need, that we do have, that are high risk, that we have assumed that responsibility. We just have, we have very strict guidelines. So it is important for our clubs to have a risk management plan. And I will tell you that, the risk management checklist is not on the website, and I thought it was in policies and procedures, but it's not. It will be added to policies and procedures. But I will make sure that, again, I gotta find it now because it's been buried somewhere when it was taken off the website, but I will make sure that that gets put in the Nevada box as well. I think it's good not only for our shooting sports is required to have one, but I think it's also really important that all of our clubs think about risk management. Even so much as a sewing club or a cooking club or a bunny club, any of them, something can go wrong, and so they need to think about it and what they would do. And it's really important that we have both youth and adults developing that risk management plan. The young people need to be thinking about it as well. So, and then this is all in policies and procedures, but I just wanted to, as we think about risk management, we do have policies about chaperones. For our overnight events, if youth are 13 and over, then it's 1 adult for every 10 youth. For 12 and under, the ratio is 1 adult for every 6 to 8 youth, depending on that age. The younger ones, obviously, it's 1 to 6. Adult chaperones must be the age of majority, so they must be at least 18 years old. Housing with chaperones, youth can be housed with a parent or a legal guardian at overnight events, except for camp, because, at camp, they could possibly if they're the same sex, but if they're not, then that is, we can't really do that. as long as that parent or that legal guardian has completed the background check and certification. So we do need to make sure that, you know, our parents are doing that if they are chaperoning. All of our official chaperones must have completed that process. They are, you know, we need to remind our chaperones that they are responsible as serving for role models, and they're guiding the youth behavior. Only adult chaperones and youth of the same gender may be housed together. Now, again, that is a little bit like, so when we took our group to Leadership Washington Focus a couple years ago, I had my son, we had a male chaperone, he was with his daughter. Now, before the conference started, because we went early, my son was, you know, we were housed together because we are related. I could not have actually had the young lady rooming with me and him rooming with the with the male chaperone, because that was a one-on-one situation. So and then the young lady was housed with her dad during, you know, before the conference started. Once the conference started, they had to go with other youth. But, you know, in those situations, yes, we can have that. But otherwise, they need to not. You know, it's only adult chaperones and youth of the same gender. Unrelated youth and adults should never share a room one-on-one or a bed one-on-one with each other. You know, if you're taking you know, if you're taking two young people, you know, maybe it might even be, you know, a female chaperone taking 2 female youth or 3 female youth. Yes, it'd be nice to have one room, you know, where you could, but that's not allowed. You need to get 2 rooms. And then overnight camping, there should be 2 adults in the cabins, not just 1 adult in the cabins. And then chaperones for overnight events must complete the volunteer, you know, they must have the background check and they must have everything completed, the application. Any questions on that? It's all in policies and procedures. And good luck finding that document on the website. It's there, but it's buried.
So maybe you just, if you direct him to box or resend it to him. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the box. It is in the box account or in the box folder. Yes. My project for Tracy in the next couple weeks is to figure out that website and find where everything is. Okay, emergency procedures. You know, if you have an emergency that happens, your first priority is to get medical attention to that injured adult, child, whatever. You should contact the parent or guardian. If you, you know, if it's a volunteer, and volunteers need to understand this as well. They need, you know, you need to contact the 4-H youth development staff or extension educator and the 4-H program manager. That needs to happen all, you know, fairly quickly. You need to prepare the incident report, and then the state 4-H director needs to be notified within 24 hours of that incident happening. And then from there, I will take it up the, you know, take it up the chain. We do have kind of a procedure. We're working on that procedure. It's almost, we pretty much have it of where it will go. But, you know, I will contact then the director of extension and our marketing and communications team, who then contacts the university marketing and communications. Whether you realize it or not, it can all end up in the press at some point, or it could end up, you know, we have to just make sure everybody's aware.
Mary, if I could speak to that.
Yes.
The sooner you do that, the better.
Yes.
We had a circumstance this last year at camp where families, law enforcement needed to be notified and such. So we jumped on it right away, and nothing, you know, there was no bad press, there was nothing, but there was additional work that we needed to do. But, you know, the sooner you get on this, you know, any kind of emergency and such, the better off you're going to be.
Yes.
And I think, you know, in terms of, like, for example, for our camping program, or what we used to do for our camping program, is we notified families that in the case of an emergency, what the protocol would be, that they would needed to have to work through the county where the camp is located, which in that case is Douglas County Emergency Information System. We would not be contacting families directly. They would contact the emergency information system to find out what the protocol is. And that would be, for example, if there was a severe thunderstorm, or if there was a fire or something that the camp had to be evacuated. So, but all of those steps are just time well spent for you to prepare. And you know, you don't like surprises, but if you plan for them, then you don't freak out.
Yes, exactly. Yep, that's why it's good to have, even for those events, have that emergency plan in place. So, all right, and then I've got about 5 minutes. So finances, we're going to go into more details in another orientation session about finances, but there is a liability here. You know, we need to remember that, and we need to remind our clubs that all money raised in the name of 4-H are public funds. So even if a club raises money, if they're doing fundraisers, that money is public money. And, you know, so they have to tell us, they have to, you know, that's why we require that annual financial report, and we require accountability. So, you know, we can be called, I've had IRS call me and say, I think this club leader is misappropriating funds. And so it happened to be a parent of a 4-H member who also worked for IRS, but you know, we have to, you know, we did a full investigation of it. So just, they need to be reminded. So fundraising, again, money raised in the name of 4-H must be used for 4-H purposes. There needs to be a goal of why they're raising money, not just raise money to raise money. There is, in the policies and procedures, in the new policies and procedures manual, there is a fundraising approval form that I have provided for you. You can require your clubs to turn those in before they do fundraisers. So that way at the county level, you know what money's being raised, and you know that not every club is going to do door-to-door solicitation of the communities, you know, of the businesses in your community all at the same time. So, you know, I think I personally would highly recommend that. Okay, transportation, just really quick. You should never be in a vehicle one-on-one with youth. You need to remind volunteers of that when you're dropping, you know, it's better to have a central place where parents come and pick up youth rather than, you know, or have another adult with you when you're taking youth and dropping them off. You cannot use 15 passenger vans. You can use 12 passenger vans, but you cannot use 15 passenger vans. And there is a transportation form and policy in the 4-H policies and procedures. Accident insurance, the primary accident insurance is highly recommended. There is a company, American Income Life, that does offer insurance for either $1 a year for 4-H members or $2 a year for horse club members or ATV I think members in ATV projects, but I don't think we have any of those. You would need to purchase that, you know, you could purchase that insurance through the extension office. A lot of counties will collect that $1 or $2 from their members, and then they just pay for that insurance as a county. And then it's, you know, it probably would not hurt if you would buy that for volunteers. It is, you know, it doesn't cover a lot. It covers probably up to, I think it might be up to $3,000 now. But let me tell you, it will cover deductibles if, you know, parents have high deductibles, and they are, you know, it's just a really, really good thing to have. If you're doing any events like camps, you need to purchase they also, in addition to the $1 a year, they also have individual events. We do purchase it at the state, for any state events, we purchase it, like Expo. It's like 30 cents is the most expensive per member per day. You know, so it's not really that expensive to do, and it does provide that, you know, that insurance. If they do have to go to the hospital, it helps cover part of that. That is accident insurance, not liability insurance. So, and if anybody has questions about that, you know, let me know. Oh, I just noticed that the American Income Life, the link to their website did not get, it was white before because I switched templates. So now I'll make sure that that's in there.
And they have a downloadable form now. So,
yes.
It's super easy. And so there's the, you know, the dollar per member, except for shooting sports and horses. And then you wanted then the specific one for events.
Yes, yes. And they are, you know, we don't endorse one company over another, but they are a great supporter of 4-H and donate a lot of money at the national level to 4-H. So I'll just say that. And they have a special 4-H division within the company that has its own person. So that's, you know, that alone just helps. So and then, okay, so I'm not going to go through these risk management activities. You guys can, well, we can look at this one. So if you, at a county horse show, you have several new members. One of them is letting their non-4-H friend ride double on his horse. And, you know, it's got the tie down clipped to the curb chain of the horse's bridle. And the cinch looks like it could break at any time. So you see this happening. So think about the potential problems of this situation. And I want you to think about, you know, who would be at fault if this would happen? Anybody have any ideas of who would be at fault? I can tell you, if you see it, you're at fault and you don't do anything about it. The child's at fault, and the program could potentially be at fault because it's at a 4-H event. So we just have to keep those things in mind. And then I've got some risky situations. You can, you know, you guys can read through those. And then some quotes about risk, because I always just like quotes. So, okay, you've carefully thought about all the angles. You've done it 1,000 times. It comes naturally to you. You know what you're doing, and you've been trained to do this your whole life. Nothing could possibly go wrong, right? Think again. So you can see. And then we have to think about risk management. It's, you know, it's your job to think about risk management first. So the mouse is thinking about risk. So, okay, 2 minutes over. That was pretty good because that was a ton of content. Thank you guys for sticking with me during all of that. I know it was a lot. Any questions, comments, thoughts?
I have a quick question, Carrie.
Yep.
Kind of going back to the chartering.
Mm-hmm.
We had some dormant clubs, if I'm allowed to use the word dormant there.
Yep.
Kind of when there was really no one here managing things.
Mm-hmm.
Now in theory, they were chartered before, but since being dormant,
mm-hmm.
would we need to go through the charter process again? How would that work?
If they're using the same name, if they're using, you know, if things really haven't changed much, technically, no. You know, you could do it again, but, you know, they're in the system. So,
Carrie, can I interject though?
Yep.
If leadership has changed and if they are truly dormant, I would redo the charter.
Yeah. Yep. But if
Okay,
you do
so
have a club, oh, go ahead.
Oh, my bad. So if there's really no change, it just kind of, you know, was dormant for that period, then we would redo the meeting outline and the bylaws.
Yep.
And update those, and that would be sufficient then.
Yeah, if the leadership hasn't changed, then I think the other piece, if we have clubs that change names, because sometimes clubs just decide they don't like their name and they want to change their name. You don't need to re-charter. Let me know what the new name is, and I will make that change. If they want to change charter, we can do that too.
Okay, amazing. Great.
Yeah. It surprises you how many times clubs decide, halfway, like they've been in existence for 10 years and they decided they don't like that name anymore and they change it. But everything else is the same.
I could see that happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Or, so yeah. And like I said, there'll be a little bit about chartering because it does tie in a little bit to financial stuff too. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Have a great day, guys.
Thanks. Any other questions? Shay, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. It's kind of a request. I could really use some help in figuring out transitioning the center to kind of the 4-H perspective. So I'm sure you guys know, when the center opened last year, it was just kind of its own center. Now we put in the paperwork to become a 80-guy 4-H club. And so as I'm working towards putting all of the families, initially the families that registered, we were just told to go ahead and use the form for enrollment under 4-H just so we could capture information from the parents. So if there was an emergency, we could reach out to them.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time when the enrollment forms were actually being filled out, they weren't being filled out with the intent of them being used to then move forward and put that in content into 4-H online. Now on the back end, now that we've transitioned to a 4-H club, we are needing to go in and take all that information and put it into 4-H online. And as you can probably imagine, hot mess would describe what we're dealing with, because we got a lot of gaps that we're trying to fill in. So I could definitely use some help with that, as well as program wise as well, like as we transition into looking at like what our summer camps look like and what our after school program looks like, making sure that we set things up where I don't have to be the go-to for all of it, that we have things structured in a way that makes sense, and it's a community center run by individual clubs or projects, as opposed to like Shay doing it all.
Yeah, I think we could probably, between Nora and myself and probably even, I'm sure Sarah wouldn't mind.
Oh, yeah, I would certainly help.
Yeah,
and and yes, absolutely. I've got a lot of ideas right now, Shay. So
and Shay, awesome. I can help you with some of that stuff too. I think that you're looking more for a community center school type club where you have some different classes and clubs and members.
Well, I could just, Karen, not to interrupt, but what you're doing, I think, at 80 Guy is very similar to what we do at Essex, which is it's a 4-H club that's site specific, and we do spin, which are special interest short-term projects within that club. So they get, instead of it being a rabbit club and that's all they do all year long, they are doing a variety of things. We change the structure every few months, so they're completing projects every few months.
Yes, that's exactly it. Just making sure that we have a variety of things we can offer to keep the variety of kids we have engaged, interested, and educated.
Yes. I've got to pop off now because I've got a whole series of Zoom meetings.
Yeah. Yep, and that's kind of, yeah. So, all right. Great. Any other questions? Well, thank you guys for sticking with us today. I appreciate everything that you guys are doing right now. Hopefully everybody's staying safe and not going crazy quite yet. Mental health is good. So I will, yeah, you guys will be hearing from me in the next couple of days, probably about some other things. So.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.